The boy came out of nowhere, barefoot in the snow, screaming at the top of his lungs. Officer Ethan Walker had his hand on the cruiser door when the kid hit him like a freight train, both arms wrapped around Ethan's waist, yanking him backward with everything his small body had. "Don't go near that car! Please! Please don't!" Rex erupted beside him, not barking but screaming, the sound a trained canine makes when the danger is real and immediate, and there is no more time. Ethan grabbed the boy and ran. 3 seconds later, the cruiser disappeared in a wall of fire and shattered glass that lit the Montana night like the end of something. Drop your city in the comments right now and subscribe to this channel. Stay until the very end, because what this homeless boy knew, and why he knew it, will change the way you think about who saves who. Ethan Walker had been a police officer in Silver Ridge for 3 years, and he had never once left a shift feeling like the town was fragile. Silver Ridge was not that kind of place. Population 4,000, 2 traffic lights, 1 diner that served the same pie it had been serving since 1987, and the specific quality of quiet that exists in small Montana towns in winter, where everybody knows which cars belong in which driveways, and a stranger stands out the way a wrong note stands out in a familiar song. Ethan had grown up 40 minutes east. He had chosen Silver Ridge because it felt like the kind of place where the work was real and the people were genuine, and the distance between a police officer and the community he served was small enough to matter. He had never once, in 3 years, walked to his cruiser expecting anything other than the drive home. Rex was at his left heel, matching his pace the way the German Shepherd always did at end of shift. That particular post-duty energy, where the dog was still alert, but had allowed himself 1 degree of relaxation. Ears up, but not locked. Eyes moving, but not fixed. 4 years together. Rex had been assigned to Ethan 2 weeks after the dog completed his explosive detection certification. And from the first day they had worked together, with the easy efficiency of partners who did not need to explain themselves to each other. The parking lot was mostly empty. 7 in the evening. The snow had been coming down since 4, and it was the serious kind of snow, not decorative, the kind that meant business and intended to stay. Ethan could see his cruiser from the station door, 3rd spot from the end. He had parked it at the start of his shift 11 hours ago, and it had been sitting in the same place all day, under a thin white coat of new snow. He was 12 feet from the driver's door when Rex stopped. Not slowed, stopped. Complete. Every muscle from shoulders to haunches going rigid, in the way that Ethan had learned over 4 years to treat as a hard command and not a suggestion. Rex's nose came up, not sniffing the way dogs sniff at interesting smells. Working. The fast, precise movement of a dog reading chemical composition from the air, the way a trained instrument reads data. Ethan stopped with him. "What have you got?" Rex did not answer with a bark. He answered by shifting his body weight forward and making a sound low in his chest that Ethan had heard exactly once before, 2 years ago at a traffic stop that turned out to have a loaded pipe bomb in the trunk. Ethan's hand went to his radio. That was the moment the boy came out of the alley. He was maybe 10 years old, maybe smaller than 10, but aged by circumstances into something that read older in the eyes and younger in the face at the same time. Barefoot, in December, in Montana, wearing a jacket that was 2 sizes too large and had no zipper and was doing essentially nothing against the cold. He came around the corner of the building at a dead run, with a brown and tan mixed-breed dog a half-step behind him. And he saw Ethan, and his face did something that Ethan would think about for a long time afterward. Not relief at seeing a police officer. Terror. The expression of a child who needed help from the one category of person he had learned not to trust. He ran toward Ethan anyway. That took more courage than most adults ever demonstrated. He hit Ethan at full speed, both arms going around his waist, and the words came out in a single tangled rush. "Don't go near that car! Don't touch it! Don't Don't go near it, please! I saw him! I saw what he did! Please!" Rex erupted. Not at the boy. Beside Ethan. Toward the cruiser. The sound Rex made was not a bark. It was the sound of a dog communicating urgency at the absolute top of its training-enforced register. The sound that meant now, not in a moment, not after you think about it. Now. Ethan grabbed the boy by the back of his jacket and ran. He got them both behind the concrete wall of the station's exterior generator housing, 20 feet from the cruiser, and got down with his arm over the boy, and Rex pressed against his other side. And 3 seconds later, the cruiser went. The concussion hit them through the wall. Heat and pressure and the sound of metal becoming something it was never designed to be. Ethan felt it in his chest and in his back and in the specific place behind his eyes where loud sounds registered as something close to pain. The boy made no sound at all. He just held onto Ethan's jacket with both fists and kept his face down, and the mixed-breed dog pressed itself against the boy's legs from the other side and stayed there. Then it was quiet. Not silent. There was fire, and there was the sound of a car alarm 3 spaces over, triggered by the blast. And there was Rex, making a low, continuous sound that meant he was alert and undamaged and waiting for instruction. But the moment after the explosion had a particular quality of quiet that Ethan recognized from his training. The quiet of something finished. The quiet that meant whatever was coming next was going to be very different from whatever had been before. Ethan lifted his head. The cruiser was gone, not damaged, not destroyed in the partial way. Gone. The spot where it had sat was a burning crater of snow and asphalt and twisted metal, and the vehicles on either side had been pushed half a foot outward from the force of it. He looked at the boy. The boy was looking at the fire with eyes that were too steady. Not calm, steady in the way of a person who has already seen enough terrible things. The terrible things no longer produce the expected reaction. They just produce a kind of flat recognition, a confirmation that the world is behaving consistently with how it has always behaved for you. "You are okay," Ethan said. The boy looked at him. "Are you okay?" "Yes." "Your car is not okay." "No," Ethan said, "it is not." He kept his hand on the boy's shoulder. "What is your name?" A pause. The particular hesitation of a child who has learned that giving his name to a person in authority sometimes produces outcomes worse than not giving it. "Noah," the boy finally said. "Noah. My name is Ethan. That is Rex." He indicated the German shepherd, who had moved to stand between them and the burning wreckage, still working, still reading the air. "You saved my life tonight. I need you to tell me everything you saw." Noah looked at Rex. The dog glanced at the boy and held the eye contact for a moment, in the way Rex did with people he had decided were not a threat, and then went back to monitoring the perimeter. Something in Noah's posture dropped by about 5 degrees of tension. Not much. Enough. "I was in the alley," Noah said. "The one behind the hardware store. That is where we sleep when it gets this cold, because the heating vent is there." He glanced down at the mixed-breed dog pressed against his legs. "Me and Biscuit. I could see the parking lot from where we were." He stopped. "Take your time," Ethan said. "A man came about 2 hours ago, before it got dark. He had a bag. He went to your car specifically, not any other car. He looked at the number on the side, and then he went to your car, and he went under it with the bag, and he was under it for maybe 4 minutes, and then he walked away." Noah said it in the flat, factual cadence of a child who has learned to observe carefully, because observation is a survival tool. He looked like he knew what he was doing. Ethan looked at the burning crater where his cruiser had been. "Did you see his face?" "Yes." "Would you recognize it again?" "Yes." Noah said it without hesitation. Then he added, more quietly, I have a good memory for faces. It is useful when you live the way I live. Station officers were pouring out of the building now. Sergeant Diane Chu reached Ethan first, phone in one hand on her weapon with the other, and she took in the burning wreckage, and Ethan and the boy, and Rex, with the rapid assessment of a 20-year veteran, and she said, You are alive. Noah saved me, Ethan said. He kept his hand on the boy's shoulder. The kid saw the bomb being planted. He ran to warn me. Diane looked at Noah. Noah looked at Diane with the expression he had arrived with, the careful, flat wariness of a child estimating whether a given authority figure was safe. Diane crouched to his level. Thank you, she said simply. No performance in it, just a fact delivered directly. Noah blinked. Like thanks from a person in a uniform was an input his system did not have a prepared response for. Biscuit, the mixed-breed dog, pushed his nose against Diane's hand. She let him sniff. Good dog, she said. Noah looked at Ethan. What happens now? Now we find out who did this, Ethan said, and we make sure they cannot do it to anyone else. He paused. But first, I need to know if you are hurt. I am cold, Noah said. It came out like a confession. Like admitting cold was a weakness he would normally not volunteer. Then let us go inside, Ethan said. Rex came to Ethan's side, and then did something Ethan had seen him do twice in 4 years. He moved to the other side of the boy and walked beside him into the station, pacing him, close enough that his warm body was against Noah's bare ankle. And Noah looked down at the dog for a moment and did not say anything, but something in his face changed, and it was the kind of change that happens when a person who has been alone for a long time unexpectedly encounters something that does not require anything of them. Inside, Ethan got Noah a blanket and hot chocolate from the break room, and sat across from him at the table while the station became the controlled chaos of a bombing investigation starting up around them. Diane was on the phone with State. 2 officers were photographing the wreckage. Someone was pulling the parking lot security footage. The man you saw, Ethan said. Can you describe him? Noah wrapped both hands around the mug. Tall, maybe your height. Heavy jacket, dark gray, hood up but not tied, so I could see his face when he turned to check if anyone was watching. He paused. He had a scar. Here. Noah touched the left side of his own jaw, just below the ear. Not old, maybe a year. Still had that pink color. Ethan wrote it down. He also had a limp, Noah said. His left leg, not severe, like an old injury, not a new one. Ethan stopped writing and looked up. How long were you watching him? Ethan said. The whole time, Noah said. I watch everyone who comes into that parking lot. It is the only way to know if I need to move Biscuit and me somewhere else. He looked at Ethan steadily. I have been watching that parking lot for 6 weeks. I know which cars belong and which ones do not. I know which officers park where. I knew it was your car because you always park in the same spot, and you always have the dog, and the dog always sniffs the front left tire when you get back. He paused. The man knew it was your car too. He checked the number. He was not guessing. The room felt colder than it had been. Someone had sent a professional to Ethan's specific vehicle. Not a random attack on a police cruiser. Not a message to the department. To Ethan's car, with Ethan's number confirmed before the device was placed. He looked at Rex, who was sitting beside Noah's chair now, monitoring the room with the calm competence that meant he was tracking everything and finding nothing in it that required immediate action. 3 months ago, Ethan had been the lead arresting officer in a federal assist operation that had taken down a mid-level distribution network operating out of 2 counties. 12 arrests. 4 of them significant enough to draw serious prison time. The case had been clean, the evidence solid, and the network's upper structure had scrambled after the arrests, trying to figure out what had been compromised and who had done it. Ethan had not thought about it since the paperwork was filed. He was thinking about it now.
Noah, Ethan said carefully, the man who planted the bomb. After he walked away from the car, which direction did he go?
North, on Clement Street, Noah said. He had a phone out before he turned the corner. He was calling someone. Reporting in, Ethan said quietly. Not to Noah, to himself. Rex lifted his head and looked at Ethan with amber eyes that asked the question the dog always asked when Ethan's body language shifted into the register that meant something significant had changed. Ethan looked back at him. Someone had known which car was his. Someone had known his shift end time. Someone had sent a professional who knew how to disable surveillance cameras and plant military-grade explosives and walk away clean. And a 10-year-old boy, with no home and nothing to gain, had risked himself to run at a police officer he had no reason to trust because he had seen something wrong and could not make himself look away from it. That was the shape of the night so far. Rex's nose went up once more. Working. Reading something in the air that Ethan could not access. Then the dog looked at the door and back at Ethan, and the message was as clear as anything the dog had ever communicated in 4 years. Whatever had started in that parking lot had not finished. It was nowhere close to finished. The state bomb technician's name was Hargrove, and he had been doing this work for 19 years, and he used words like clean signature and military-grade detonation protocol, the way other people used words like nice weather and how was your weekend, with the flat familiarity of someone who had long ago stopped being surprised by the things human beings did to each other. He stood in the burned-out crater of the parking lot with Ethan at 1 a.m. and said, "Whoever built this knew exactly what they were doing. The placement was precise. Driver's side undercarriage. Maximum lethality toward the seat. Minimal splash radius to avoid collateral damage to surrounding vehicles." He looked at Ethan. This was not a message. This was an execution attempt. Whoever ordered this wanted you dead. Not scared. Dead. Ethan had already understood that. Hearing it said out loud by a professional who had seen 19 years of these things was a different experience from understanding it. C4, Hargrove continued. Military specification. Not the commercially available variant. The kind that requires either active military access or a very specific black market connection. He paused. I have seen this signature before. 11 months ago in Billings. A federal informant. Same placement, same detonation profile. He stopped. That case was never closed. Ethan looked at him. You think it is the same person? I think it is the same hands, Hargrove said. Whether the same person ordered it is a different question. Inside the station, Detective Maya Collins had been at her desk for 3 hours when Ethan walked back through the door. Maya was 34, 12 years on the force, the last 4 as the department's only detective. And she had the specific quality of focus that some people develop when they have spent long enough solving problems in under-resourced environments. She worked fast, and she worked with what she had, and she did not complain about the gap between the two. She looked up when Ethan walked in. She looked at his face, and then she said, "Sit down." "I am fine." "You were 11 feet from a military-grade car bomb 2 hours ago. Sit down." He sat. She slid a folder across the desk. I pulled the footage from the hardware store camera across the street. The parking lot camera was disabled. Professionally. The wiring was cut from inside the conduit box, which means whoever did it had access to the station's exterior electrical panel. She let that sit for a second. Which means they did reconnaissance. This was not improvised. Someone walked this location beforehand. Ethan opened the folder. A still frame from the hardware store footage. Grainy, long distance, but the figure was visible. Dark gray jacket, hood up. Left leg carrying the weight slightly differently from the right. Noah described him exactly, Ethan said, including the limp. Maya nodded. I know. I talked to him while you were outside with Hargrove. That kid's recall is remarkable. She paused. He also described the vehicle the man arrived in. Dark blue pickup, older model, cracked right taillight, partial plate, JK7. She had already written it on the board behind her. I ran it through DMV, cross-referenced with rentals in a 50-mile radius. And? Nothing registered, which tells us the plate was either swapped or the vehicle is not in any system it should be in. She leaned back in her chair. But here is the thing. Noah said the man checked your car number before he went under it. He confirmed the specific unit. That means someone gave him your assignment. Someone who knew which cruiser you drove on a given shift. Ethan felt the implication land. That information lives inside this building, or with someone who has access to someone inside this building, Maya said. Her voice was careful, not accusatory, precise. I am not saying it is anyone in this room. I am saying the information pathway matters, and we have to follow it. Ethan looked at the still frame again. The figure, the posture, the particular way a person moves when they believe they are not being watched. And they are right about that for every camera except one they did not account for. 3 months ago, Ethan said, the Harlan Network takedown. Maya's expression shifted by 1 degree. She knew where he was going. Marcus Harlan pled out, Ethan said. 10 years. But his distribution lieutenant, Victor Hale, was not in the building when we executed the warrant. He was flagged as a person of interest, never charged, insufficient direct evidence. I wrote the report. I submitted the follow-up twice. He paused. It went nowhere. Victor Hale, Maya said slowly. She was already at her keyboard. Former military. I remember reading the background file. She pulled it up. Her eyes moved across the screen and then stopped. She read something twice. Then she turned the monitor so Ethan could see it. Victor Hale, 38 years old, United States Army. Explosive ordnance disposal. Honorable discharge 7 years ago following an injury sustained during a training exercise. Left leg. The injury had been listed as partial nerve damage, resulting in a slight but permanent disruption of gait. Ethan stared at the screen. Left leg, he said. Left leg, Maya confirmed. Noah described the limp before I ever mentioned Hale's name. Before I knew to mention it, Ethan sat back. A 10-year-old kid sleeping in an alley behind a hardware store made an EOD specialist? Maya was quiet for a moment. There is more. She scrolled down. Hale was connected to a syndicate operating out of western Montana and northern Idaho. When the Harlan network collapsed, Hale lost his primary revenue source and his operational protection. Federal monitoring flagged 3 communications from a burner number believed to be Hale's in the 6 weeks following the arrests. All encrypted. The federal team was tracking them but lost the signal. She paused. The last communication was 9 days ago. 9 days ago, Ethan said. 9 days ago, Maya said, which is consistent with the timeline of reconnaissance on this building's exterior electrical systems. She looked at him. Ethan, this is not about the Harlan bust anymore. Hale is not running a revenge operation for a distribution network. He was using the Harlan connection as a revenue stream. This is something larger, and the car bomb is not the main event. Ethan went still. Hargrove told me the C4 was military specification, Ethan said. The kind that requires active military access, or a specific black market connection. If Hale is EOD trained, and connected to a syndicate with resources. He did not build one bomb, Maya said. He is not the kind of person who builds one bomb and walks away. She turned back to the monitor. I pulled Rex's detection logs from the past 8 months, cross-referenced with any calls involving chemical odor complaints, unusual packages, abandoned vehicles. She slid a printed page across the desk. 7 entries. These are the locations where Rex flagged something in the past 3 weeks. All of them were logged as inconclusive. No confirmed device. No follow-up. Ethan looked at the list. Rex does not flag inconclusive. Rex flags presence or absence. I know, Maya said. Which means whoever is logging these reports does not understand what Rex's inconclusive notation actually means. Or knew exactly what it meant and logged it that way anyway. Ethan did not say that out loud. Neither did Maya. But it was in the room between them, as clearly as if they had both said it. Ethan stood. I need to show Noah something. Maya looked at him. It is 2 in the morning. He is still here. Diane set him up in the break room. He would not go to the shelter. Ethan was already moving toward the door. He said the last time he went to the county shelter, someone stole Biscuit, and he walked out to find the dog and never went back. Maya said nothing to that, because there was nothing useful to say to it. Noah was in the break room, with Biscuit against his legs, and Rex on the floor 3 feet away. All 3 of them in the particular arrangement of beings that have decided, without formal agreement, that they are staying in proximity until further notice. Noah was not asleep. Ethan suspected Noah was rarely fully asleep. He had the alertness of a person whose survival had depended for long enough on light sleeping that his body had stopped offering him the alternative. He looked up when Ethan came in. Ethan set a photograph on the table. Victor Hale. A federal identification photo from 7 years ago. Is this the man you saw tonight? Noah looked at the photograph. He did not rush. He looked at it carefully, the way he had looked at the parking lot, with the patience of someone who understood that accuracy mattered more than speed. Older now, Noah said. Hair is shorter in this picture, and the scar was not there yet. He looked up. But yes, that is him. The way he holds his shoulders when he walks. The way he checked the lot before he moved. That is him. Ethan took the photograph back. Are you certain? I am certain, Noah said. He looked at Ethan with the directness of a child who has learned that equivocation is a luxury you abandon when you live the way he lived. I do not say things I am not certain of. It wastes time. Ethan sat across from him. Rex lifted his head and watched Ethan's face the way the dog always did when he was trying to read the emotional content of a situation. Noah, when you were in the alley tonight, did you see anything else? Anyone else? Anything that seemed wrong besides the man with the bag? Noah was quiet for a moment. The thoughtful quiet of someone going back through stored information. A car, he said slowly. Not the blue pickup. A different one. It was parked on Clement Street for the whole time the man was in the lot. It left about 10 minutes after he did. But it sat there the whole time, like it was watching. He paused. The windows were tinted. I could not see inside. But the engine was running the whole time. Someone was sitting in it. Someone waiting to confirm the device was placed, Ethan said quietly. Or someone making sure the man did not make any mistakes, Noah said. Ethan looked at him for a moment. How old are you, Noah? 10, Noah said. Almost 11. How long have you been living outside? A pause. Since spring, Noah said. My grandmother passed in April. She was the last family I had. He said it without the particular inflection that most people would put on those words. Not flat, just honest. The way a person speaks about a fact they have already finished grieving and have moved into simply carrying. The county placed me with a foster family in May. I left in June. Ethan did not ask why. The way Noah said it told him enough. "You have been alone since June," Ethan said. "Biscuit has been with me since July," Noah said. He reached down and put his hand on the dog's head. "I found him behind the grocery store. Someone had left him." He paused. "He was hungry and scared, and I was hungry and scared, so we stayed together." He looked at Ethan. "Are you going to try to make me go somewhere?" "Not tonight," Ethan said. "Tonight, you stay here, where it is warm." Noah accepted this without the gratitude that most adults would expect. He accepted it the way someone accepts a fact. Ethan understood that was not coldness. It was a child who had learned that expressing too much hope about temporary safety was more painful than simply receiving it quietly. Ethan's phone buzzed. Maya. He stepped into the hallway and answered. "I found something," Maya said. "The 7 locations Rex flagged. I mapped them." A pause that carried weight. "Ethan, they form a perimeter. A specific perimeter around the Silver Ridge Winter Festival grounds. The festival runs this weekend. Saturday night at full capacity, the grounds will have between 4,000 and 6,000 people." Ethan pressed his hand flat against the wall. "He is not here for me," Ethan said. The car bomb was to remove the one officer in the department with an explosive detection canine. I was not the target. I was the obstacle. "That is what I think too," Maya said. "Which means we have 3 days. And we have a syndicate with military-grade C4, a former EOD specialist who knows how to build devices that do not show up in standard sweeps, and at least one person inside our operational information chain who has been logging Rex's detection flags as inconclusive." The hallway was very quiet. "Pull every officer's access record for the cruiser assignment system," Ethan said. "Anyone who accessed shift assignments in the past 2 weeks. Do it quietly. Do not put it through the main system." "Already started," Maya said. "There is one more thing. The Billings case Hargrove mentioned. The federal informant." I pulled the case file. The informant had been scheduled to testify against a syndicate with operations across 3 states. The testimony never happened because the informant did not survive the car bomb. She paused. The case agent on that investigation was transferred to Billings from Western Montana 8 months ago. "Where in Western Montana?" A pause. "Silver Ridge," Maya said. Ethan stood in the hallway of his own police station and understood that the shape of what they were dealing with was considerably larger than a revenge bombing, and considerably older than 3 months, and had roots in this town that went back further than anyone had been willing to look. He went back into the break room. Noah was watching him with those careful eyes. Biscuit's head was up. Rex had moved closer to the door in the way he moved when his handler's stress level changed, and he was repositioning to be useful. "Noah," Ethan said, "tomorrow I am going to need you to work with our department sketch artist. The face you remember. Every detail." "I can draw it myself," Noah said. "I am good at drawing." Ethan looked at him. "You draw." "I draw everything," Noah said. He said it without pride. "Just information. It helps me remember things. When you live where I live, you learn to hold on to information in different ways, because you do not always have somewhere to write things down." He reached into the inside pocket of the oversized jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. He unfolded it on the table. It was Victor Hale's face. Rendered in pencil on the back of a grocery receipt. Exact. The scar. The particular set of the jaw. The way the hood had shadowed his forehead. It was not a child's drawing. It was a record, precise and detailed and useful in the way that only observation driven by genuine necessity produces. Ethan picked it up carefully. He thought about a 10-year-old boy sleeping in an alley in December, who drew the faces of everyone who came into the parking lot, because that was how he kept himself safe. He thought about Biscuit sitting at Noah's feet through all of it, steady and present, the way Rex was steady and present. The loyalty of animals who had been given nothing and returned everything. He thought about 6,000 people at a winter festival 3 days from now. He set the drawing down and looked at Noah. "You may have just saved a great deal more than my life tonight," Ethan said. Noah looked at the drawing, and then at Biscuit, and then at Rex, who had come to stand beside the table and was looking at the drawing with his nose working, pulling something from the paper, reading Victor Hale's chemical signature from a pencil sketch on a grocery receipt. Then Rex sat down and looked at Ethan, and the message in his amber eyes was the same message it had always been. "We know who we are looking for. Now we need to find him before he finishes what he came here to do." The access log printout was 4 pages long, and Maya put it on Ethan's desk at 7 in the morning without saying anything, because the name at the top of the relevant entries said everything that needed to be said before either of them was ready to say it. Ethan looked at the pages. He looked at the name. He looked at Maya. Sergeant Kowalski accessed the cruiser assignment system 4 times in the 48 hours before the bombing, Maya said. Her voice was level, with the specific effort of a person keeping something level that wants badly to be something else. Twice on a shift where he had no operational reason to be in that system. The access timestamps are there. The log does not lie. Ethan had known Tom Kowalski for 3 years. Kowalski had been on the Silver Ridge Force for 11. He coached the Youth Hockey League. He brought homemade chili to every department potluck. He had been the first officer to shake Ethan's hand when Ethan made the K-9 unit. "Pull his financials," Ethan said. "Already requested through the state attorney's office." Quietly. Maya sat down. "But Ethan, we have a harder problem right now. If Kowalski is the leak, he knows we survived the bombing. He knows Noah is in this building. He does not know what Noah saw or what Noah drew, but he knows the boy exists." She paused. "And if Hale knows the boy exists—" "Noah is a liability to them," Ethan said. "A witness who can place Hale at the scene, and who has a photographic memory, and who already produced a drawing that could identify Hale in a courtroom." Maya looked at him. "Yes." Ethan was up before she finished the sentence. He went to the break room. Noah was awake. He had apparently been awake for some time. He was sitting at the table with a fresh piece of paper, drawing again. Biscuit's head in his lap. Rex stretched out beneath the table in the particular way Rex slept when he was not fully sleeping, one ear still tracking. Noah looked up when Ethan walked in and read his face immediately. The boy's own expression went still. "Something happened." "I need to move you," Ethan said. "You and Biscuit both. Somewhere that is not this building." Noah did not ask why. He folded the paper he was working on, put it in his jacket, and stood up. "Where?" "Somewhere safe," Ethan said. "I need you to trust me." Noah looked at him for a moment. The same assessment he had been running since the beginning, the evaluation of a child who had been failed by enough adults to know that trust was not a binary, that it was extended in increments based on evidence. He had watched Ethan put his body between a boy he did not know and an explosion. He had watched Ethan sit across a table at 2 in the morning and treat what he said like it mattered. He had watched Rex choose to sleep near him rather than near his handler, which was a form of endorsement that carried more weight with Noah than anything an adult could have said. "Okay," Noah said. Ray Okafor was not a character in this story, but Maya's cousin Linda was, and Linda ran a livestock property 8 miles outside Silver Ridge and did not ask questions that did not need answering, and had a spare room and a yard and 3 working dogs who would alert on any unfamiliar presence within a quarter-mile of the house. Ethan drove Noah and Biscuit there himself, in an unmarked vehicle, and did not use his radio once during the drive. When he came back, Maya had the warehouse. Not the bomb, not Hale. The warehouse, a property on the northern edge of the freight yard, 3 miles outside town, registered to a shell company, incorporated in Nevada 14 months ago. The registration had been flagged by a state revenue algorithm as a dormant entity with unusual utility consumption, high electricity draw for an apparently empty building. The flag had been sitting in a state database for 6 weeks, without follow-up. Rex flagged this location 11 days ago, Maya said. She pointed to the address on her screen. It is on the list, the one where his detection was logged as inconclusive. Ethan looked at the address. He looked at Maya. We go now. We call it in first. We call Torres at state, Ethan said, not internal dispatch. Maya understood immediately. She made the call to state herself, while Ethan geared Rex up in the parking lot, going through the harness check with the automatic precision of someone who has done something enough times that his hands work while his mind is somewhere else. His mind was on Noah's drawing, on the scar on Victor Hale's jaw, on the 11 locations Rex had flagged, and the pattern they formed around a festival that 6,000 people were planning to attend in 48 hours. State said 45 minutes for backup. Ethan looked at the clock, looked at Rex. We do not wait inside. We establish observation from a distance, and we wait for backup. Maya nodded. Agreed. They drove to the freight yard and parked 200 yards from the warehouse. The building was quiet, no visible movement. 2 vehicles near the loading dock. A dark blue pickup with what appeared to be a cracked right taillight. That is the truck, Maya said. Rex's nose was at the window gap before Ethan had finished the thought. The dog's entire body changed. Not the slow, incremental shift of a dog picking up a distant trace. The immediate, locked response of a dog who has just confirmed something significant and close. He is reading C4, Ethan said quietly. From 200 yards. Maya had her hand on a radio. 43 minutes until backup. Then Rex made the sound. Not the combat warning, something different. The alert he made when a secondary target was present beyond the primary detection. He was telling Ethan there was more than one location of concern. He turned his nose from the warehouse to the right, tracking something Ethan could not see, and whined once in the specific register that meant he wanted to move toward it and was waiting for authorization. He is picking up something else, Ethan said. Something separate from the warehouse. That is not possible, Maya said. We are 200 yards out. Rex does not get distance wrong, Ethan said. He looked at the dog. Rex was focused on a point past the warehouse, slightly north, in the direction of an access road that ran parallel to the freight yard toward the highway. A vehicle was moving on that access road. Slow. No lights. Someone is leaving, Maya said. Ethan made the decision in the time it takes to make decisions when there is no good option, only a less bad one. I'm going after the vehicle. You hold here. The moment backup arrives, you go into that warehouse, and you do not go in before. Ethan, the vehicle is moving. If it clears the freight yard, it is on the main road and we lose it. He was already putting the truck in drive. Rex is telling me that vehicle is carrying something. I trust him. Maya pressed her lips together. Keep your radio on. He drove. Rex was in full alert in the passenger seat, nose tracking the vehicle ahead through the gap in the window, body rigid with the focus of a dog who is locked onto a target and will not release it until he is told to or until it is resolved. Ethan kept his lights off and drove by the ambient light of the snow, which was enough in flat terrain to navigate without advertising his presence. The vehicle ahead was a white cargo van, moving faster now. It had seen him, or it had a departure schedule it was keeping to. Either way, it was not moving like a vehicle that did not know it was being followed. Ethan keyed his radio. Maya, white cargo van, freight yard access road heading north. No plates visible. Occupant count unknown. Copy, Maya said. Backup is 30 minutes out. 30 minutes. The van accelerated. Ethan accelerated. Rex made the sound again. The secondary alert. More urgent this time. The van was close enough now that Rex was reading it clearly, and what he was reading was making him pace in the passenger seat, which was something Rex almost never did, because Rex had operational discipline that most human partners envied. I know, Ethan said. I hear you. The van hit the main road and turned south, toward town, toward Silver Ridge, toward the festival grounds that would begin setup in the morning. Ethan got his lights on and his siren, and the van sped up in the way that confirmed everything. And Ethan was on the radio, calling it into state, while managing the pursuit, and watching Rex at the same time. Because Rex's behavior was telling him something additional that he had not yet fully translated. The van braked hard at a junction and turned east on a county road, and Ethan stayed with it. 3 miles. 4. The county road narrowed. Rex shifted position in the seat, nose pointed now not at the van ahead, but down toward the road, tracking something at ground level. Ethan understood. The van was not carrying its entire payload. It had already made a drop. He grabbed the radio. Maya, the van has already deployed at least one device. Unknown location. I need Rex on a ground search the moment I stop this vehicle. Tell state we may have a device outside the freight yard perimeter. The van's engine note changed. It was slowing. Not because Ethan was forcing it, because the driver had decided something. The van stopped in the middle of the county road. The driver's door opened. A figure stepped out. Tall. Heavy jacket. The left leg taking the weight with a particular compensation of an old injury. Victor Hale stood in the road in front of Ethan's headlights and put his hands up. Not the hands of a man surrendering. The hands of a man who has calculated that this moment serves his purpose better than continuing to run. Ethan stopped his vehicle, got out. Rex hit the ground beside him and went to the end of his lead toward Hale and then stopped, nose down, tracking something on the ground between them that was not Hale himself. Officer Walker, Hale said. His voice was even, the voice of someone who had planned for this conversation. I wondered if it would be you. On the ground, Ethan said. Hands where I can see them. Hale did not move. There are 3 devices, he said, already placed. Not here. In town. Rex can find them. He already found 2 of them 11 days ago, and your department logged it as inconclusive because someone in your building made sure of it. He paused. I will tell you where the 3rd one is if you listen to me for 60 seconds. Ethan kept his weapon level. Rex was still tracking at ground level, pulling on the lead toward the van. You have 30 seconds, Ethan said. The festival was not my idea, Hale said. I built the devices because I was told to build them. I planted the car bomb because I was told to plant it. I am EOD trained, and I am very good at what I do, and I have been doing it for people who have significantly more resources than your department has the capacity to imagine. He looked at Ethan steadily. But I am also standing here in the middle of a county road with my hands up, because I drew the line at 6,000 civilians, and the person who ordered this operation did not expect me to draw a line anywhere. Rex sat down. The specific, sit.
The trained final alert position. He was pointing at the ground 12 feet to the left of the van.
There is something buried there, Ethan said.
Remote detonated backup trigger, Hale said.
Disabled. I disabled it before I stopped the van. He kept his hands up. There are 3 devices in town. 2 in locations Rex already flagged. 1 in a new location I placed this morning, before I decided I was done. He looked at Ethan. I will take you to all 3. I will show your bomb technicians exactly how they are built, and exactly how to disarm them. And then I will give you every name above me in the operational structure of the organization that ordered a mass casualty event in a town of 4,000 people. The wind moved across the county road. Snow was starting again. Rex sat in his alert position and watched Victor Hale with amber eyes that were reading the man in ways no human instrument could replicate. Ethan looked at his dog. Rex was not agitated.
He was not displaying the stress indicators of a canine in the presence of active deception. He was calm, watchful, present. Ethan had learned to trust that.
Get on your knees, Ethan said. Hands behind your head. You talk to me after you are secured. Hale got on his knees in the snow without argument. The 3rd device is at the power substation on Miller Road, he said, as Ethan came toward him with cuffs. It is on a 6-hour timer that I set at 5 this morning. You have until 11. He paused. It is enough C4 to take out the grid for the entire festival grounds. Without power, emergency services cannot coordinate. Then the other 2 devices activate remotely. He looked up at Ethan. I have been building bombs for people who do not care how many die. I built very good ones. And the only reason you have 11 hours instead of none is because a 10-year-old boy stopped you from getting in your car last night. Ethan cuffed him. He stood back.
He looked at the sky and the snow coming down, and the county road empty in both directions, and thought about Noah in Linda's spare room 8 miles away, drawing faces on the backs of grocery receipts, because that was how he kept himself safe in a world that had not given him much else to work with. He keyed his radio. Maya, I have Hale in custody. He is cooperating. I need Hargrove on the phone in the next 3 minutes, and I need every available unit to Miller Road substation. He paused. And tell State we are working with the suspect to locate and disable 3 active devices. Time sensitive. Copy, Maya said. There was a pause. Ethan, are you good? He looked at Rex. Rex looked back at him with those steady amber eyes that had started all of this 11 days ago by flagging a warehouse that someone in the department had decided not to follow up on, that had pointed at a cargo van on a county road in the dark and sat down in the alert position next to a disabled detonator in the snow. That had been right about every single thing that mattered since the moment this began. I am good, Ethan said. Get Hargrove. Rex shook the snow from his coat and moved to Ethan's left heel and stood there in the particular way he stood when the situation was serious and he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And somewhere in Silver Ridge, in an empty freight yard warehouse, in 2 locations that Rex had already found, and 1 substation on Miller Road, 3 devices sat on timers, counting down toward a festival full of families who were planning a winter evening and had no idea that the distance between them and catastrophe was 1 canine's nose, 1 ex-soldier's conscience, and 1 homeless boy who had watched a parking lot because watching carefully was the only protection he had. 11 hours. They had 11 hours. And Victor Hale, on his knees in the snow on a county road, had just decided that was enough time to make one right choice after a long run of wrong ones. Hargrove arrived at the Miller Road substation at 8:43 in the morning, and the first thing he said when he got out of the vehicle
was not a greeting and not a question. It was a single word, delivered in the tone of a man who had spent 19 years hoping he would never have to use it professionally. C4. He could smell it from the parking area. Not literally, but 19 years of working with military-grade explosives develops a specific awareness that is not quite smell and not quite instinct, but something that lives in the space between the two. He looked at Ethan. He looked at Hale, cuffed and sitting in the back of the state vehicle 20 feet away. He looked at Rex, who was at full alert at the end of his lead, nose pointed at the transformer housing on the east side of the substation.
"Your dog is right," Hargrove said. "Walk me to it." Rex led them in 30 seconds. The device was behind the secondary transformer housing, tucked into a maintenance cavity with the specific concealment methodology of someone who had spent years learning exactly where structural blind spots existed in utility infrastructure. Hargrove crouched in front of it and was quiet for a long moment, with his hands on his knees and his eyes moving across the assembly with the focused attention of a man reading something that could kill him if he misread a single word. 6-hour timer, he said, consistent with what your suspect told you. Sophisticated trigger. Military-grade detonator with a secondary failsafe. He looked up at Ethan. If you had not gotten to this in the next 9 hours, the grid for the entire festival grounds goes out. No power, no communications, no coordination for emergency services. He paused. And then the other two go remotely on the blackout signal. "Can you disarm it?" Ethan said. "Yes," Hargrove said, "but I need your suspect to confirm the secondary failsafe configuration. If I go at the primary without knowing the failsafe sequence, the backup trigger activates." Ethan walked to the state vehicle. He opened the rear door. Hale looked at him with the expression he had been wearing since the county road. Not defiant, not scared. The expression of a man who had made a decision and was now in the part that came after the decision, which is always harder than the decision itself. "Hargrove needs the secondary failsafe sequence," Ethan said. Hale told him. A series of steps in the specific technical language of someone who had built the device from the ground up and knew it the way a person knows something they made with their own hands. Ethan relayed it to Hargrove, word for word. Hargrove worked for 11 minutes. Those 11 minutes were the longest Ethan could remember since he had grabbed a boy he did not know and run from a parking lot in a Montana snowstorm 2 days ago. He stood 30 feet back from the transformer housing, with Rex beside him and Maya on his left. And he did not speak, and did not check his phone, and kept his eyes on Hargrove's back, and listened to the sounds of a man carefully disassembling something that was trying very hard to stay assembled. Then Hargrove stood up and turned around, and held up something small and cylindrical between 2 fingers. "Primary detonator," he said. "Device is inert." Rex sat down, the full alert sit, formal, complete, as if to say, documented, confirmed, this one is finished. Maya exhaled beside Ethan. It was the exhale of someone who had been holding their breath since 8:43 and had not acknowledged it until now. "2 more," Ethan said. He looked at Hale through the vehicle window. "Take us to them." The second device was in the freight yard warehouse. They had known it was there. What they had not known, what Hale told them on the drive over with his cuffed hands in his lap and his voice giving nothing away emotionally, but everything factually, was that the warehouse had a second room behind a false interior wall that the state team had not located in their initial sweep. The second room contained not one device, but staging materials for 3 additional ones that had not yet been assembled. Crates of C4, detonator components, timer assemblies, enough material to run a second operation after the festival if the first one was ever disrupted. Hargrove walked through the second room with his hands clasped behind his back and the expression of someone doing an inventory they would rather not be doing.
"There is enough here to designate this a federal explosives incident," he said. "This is not a Silver Ridge matter anymore. This is ATF and FBI and a federal prosecution."
"Good," Ethan said. "Let it be." The third device was the one that changed everything. It was not at a location Rex had previously flagged. It was not in the freight yard, and it was not at the festival grounds, and it was not anywhere on the map that Hale had described when he gave up the first two locations. Ethan understood this was not deception. The third device had been placed by someone else, someone who had been watching Hale's cooperation unfold through a channel Ethan had not yet identified, and had decided to implement a contingency. Hale told him when they were back in the vehicle. His voice changed when he told him. Not much, just enough that Ethan noticed. "There was supposed to be a fourth man," Hale said. "My contact. The one who gave me the operational orders and handled payment and coordinated with whoever runs this network above both of us. I have never met him in person. I know him by a single identifier." He paused. "He contacted me this morning after I stopped the van, before you arrived. He told me the contingency was already active. He told me it did not matter that I stopped because the job was already done." Ethan felt something cold move through his chest. "Where?" he said. "He said the boy," Hale said. "He said the witness. He said the problem was already handled." Ethan was on his phone before Hale finished the sentence. He called Linda's number. It rang 4 times. He called again. On the third attempt, Linda picked up, and she was breathing in the fast, shallow way of someone who had been running. "They came 20 minutes ago," she said. "2 of them. I do not know how they found us. My dogs alerted, and I got Noah and Biscuit into the storm cellar, and I called 911, but Ethan, they are still on the property." Ethan was moving. Maya was already at the wheel. Rex was in the back, and the vehicle was moving before the door was fully closed. "Stay in the cellar," Ethan said. "Do not open it for anyone you do not recognize. I am 8 miles out." "There is something else," Linda said. Her voice dropped. "Noah went back out." Ethan felt the cold move through him again, harder this time. "He said Biscuit ran out when I opened the cellar door, and Noah went after him, and I could not hold him back, and they are somewhere on the property, and Ethan, I cannot see them from the cellar, and I cannot go out there and—" "Stay where you are," Ethan said. "I am coming." He ended the call. Maya was driving fast on a county road that was not designed for the speed she was pushing. She did not say anything. She was doing the only thing that was useful, which was driving. Rex was making the sound. Not the explosive detection alert. Not the combat warning. The third sound. The one that had no official designation in his training documentation, but that Ethan had heard 3 times in 4 years, and that always meant the same thing. "Someone I have assessed as worth protecting is in danger right now, and we need to move." He was right every time he made that sound, every single time. Ethan checked his weapon. Standard procedure. The automatic check that meant his hands needed something to do while his mind ran the geometry of an 8-mile drive and whatever was on the other side of it. He thought about Noah in an alley in December, watching a parking lot, because observation was survival. He thought about a boy who would run at a police officer he had no reason to trust, because he could not make himself look away from something wrong. He thought about small hands wrapped around a mug of hot chocolate, and a drawing of Victor Hale's face rendered on the back of a grocery receipt, with more precision than most trained sketch artists managed on their best day. He thought about what it cost a 10-year-old boy who had been alone since June to run after a stray dog on a property where armed men were present. He thought about what it said about that boy, that he had done it anyway. "Faster," Ethan said. Maya went faster. They hit Linda's property at 9:27. The gate was open.
One unfamiliar vehicle parked near the barn. No visible movement from the driveway, but Rex was in full alert before they stopped, tracking something past the barn, toward the eastern fence line, where the property backed up against a tree line. Ethan got out and unclipped Rex's lead. Rex did not run. He moved at the controlled, fast pace of a working dog who knows where he is going and does not need to waste speed on direction changes. Ethan followed him. Maya covered the barn. Rex went to the fence line and turned north along it, and stopped at a gap in the fence boards where the bottom panel had been pushed outward. He sat, alert. And then he made a sound that Ethan had never heard him make before. Not an alert, not a warning. Something that lived in the register that dogs reserve for communication with things they consider their own. A sound answered from the other side of the fence. Not a child's voice. Biscuit, the mixed-breed dog's particular bark, the one that said, "I am here, and I am staying here until you come." Ethan went through the fence gap. Noah was in the tree line 8 feet back, flat against a pine trunk. Biscuit pressed against his legs, both of them completely still. He had done what someone who lives by observation does when they need to not be found. He had picked the position with the best sight lines and the most cover, and he had not moved. He looked at Ethan when Ethan came through the fence, and the expression on his face was not the expression of a child who had been frightened and was now relieved. It was the expression of a child who had been running a calculation and had been waiting for his answer. "There are 2 of them," Noah said immediately. "One went to the house. One is behind the barn. He has been there for 6 minutes. He has not moved." Ethan looked at Rex. Rex was already turning back toward the fence, nose working toward the barn. "You saw them," Ethan said. "I was watching from the upstairs window when their car came in," Noah said. "Biscuit heard them first. He always hears things first." He reached down and put his hand on the dog's back without looking away from Ethan. "I came out here because I could see from the tree line, and I could not see from the cellar, and I needed to know where they were." Ethan looked at this boy, 10 years old, almost 11, alone since June, sleeping in alleys and watching parking lots and drawing faces on grocery receipts, and now, in a tree line in winter, having run tactical observation on 2 armed men because sitting in a storm cellar without information was more intolerable to him than being in danger with it. "Stay here," Ethan said. "Do not move until I come back for you personally. Understand?" "Yes," Noah said. Rex had already gone back through the fence. Ethan went with him. The man behind the barn was exactly where Noah said. He had a phone in his hand, and he was in the process of raising it to his ear when Rex came around the corner of the barn at full speed, and the phone went a different direction entirely, and the man made a sound that conveyed very clearly that he had not been briefed on the possibility of a German shepherd in this sequence of events. Ethan had him cuffed and on the ground in under 30 seconds. Maya had the second man at the front of the house when Ethan came around. He was face down in the snow, with his hands behind his back, and Maya was standing over him with the calm competence of someone who has been doing this for 12 years and has never once needed to raise her voice to make a point. Ethan keyed his radio. "2 in custody at the Linda Reeves property on Route 9. Request transport." He paused. "And tell State we need an ID run on both. Priority. I want to know who sent them before the hour is out." He went back through the fence. Noah had not moved. Biscuit's tail was going when he saw Ethan. Rex came through the fence behind Ethan and went directly to Biscuit, and the 2 dogs touched noses in the brief, formal greeting of animals confirming each other's presence after a period of separation. Noah looked at Ethan. "Did you get them?" "Both of them," Ethan said. Noah nodded. One short nod. "Good," he said. And then, after a pause that carried everything he was not going to say, because saying it would cost him something he was not ready to spend,
Is it over? Ethan crouched to his level. Rex came and sat beside him, which put the dog between Ethan and Noah, the way Rex had been positioning himself since the beginning of this. The shepherd's amber eyes moved between them, with the steady attention of a dog who was not monitoring for threat, who was simply present for something that he understood was important in a way that had nothing to do with explosives or suspects or crime scenes. "The devices are all handled," Ethan said. "The festival is safe. Hale is in state custody, and he is talking." He looked at Noah directly. "You are safe." Noah looked at Biscuit, then at Rex, then at Ethan. "I have been not safe for a long time," Noah said. Not accusatory, just a fact delivered from inside the specific experience of it. It feels different when someone says it out loud. Ethan held his gaze and did not look away. "I know," he said. "I am going to work on making it true instead of just said. That is going to take more than this morning." Noah studied him for a moment. The full assessment. Every instrument he had developed over a hard year of survival, running at full capacity. Then he said, "Okay. One word. But in the economy of a child who spent his words carefully, it was everything." Rex's tail moved once, slow and certain, and the snow kept coming down on a property 8 miles outside Silver Ridge, Montana, where a 10-year-old boy and a mixed-breed dog had held their position in a tree line because watching and waiting and not looking away was the only power they had ever had. And it had always been enough. And today, it was more than enough. Today, it had helped save a city. And Ethan Walker, walking Noah back through the fence, with Rex at their left and Biscuit at their right, understood that the most important arrest he had ever made was not the man behind the barn or the one in front of the house. It was the moment he had decided a boy who said, "Don't go near that car," deserved to be believed. Because that decision had started everything. And what came next was going to be different. For both of them. The identity confirmation on the 2 men from Linda's property came back at 11:47 that morning. And when Maya put the results on Ethan's desk, she did it with the specific care of someone setting down something fragile. Both men were connected to the same syndicate network that had employed Victor Hale. But the phone recovered from the first man contained something additional. A contact list with one entry that was not encrypted, not hidden, not protected in any way. As if the person who owned that number had never considered the possibility of being found, because they had spent 11 years making sure they would not be. The name attached to the number was Tom Kowalski. Not a surprise. They had already pulled his access logs. They had already requested his financials. But seeing his name on a contact list, recovered from an armed man who had come to a property to silence a 10-year-old witness, was a different category of thing from seeing irregular access timestamps in a database. It was the difference between a suspicion and a fact, between something you investigated and something you prosecuted. Maya called state, while Ethan sat at his desk and looked at the name and thought about 11 years of department potlucks and youth hockey, and the handshake on the day Rex was assigned to him. Kowalski was arrested at his home at 12:15. He did not resist. He opened the door in his bathrobe and looked at the state officers, and then past them at Ethan. And his face did the thing that faces do when the thing a person has been dreading for a long time finally arrives, and there is a specific, exhausted relief underneath the fear. Like the waiting is over. Like the weight of carrying the secret is heavier than the weight of what comes after it is gone. He said, "I want an attorney." "Good decision," Ethan said. He turned and walked back to his vehicle, and sat in the driver's seat for a moment with his hands on the wheel, and Rex in the passenger seat, watching him with the attentiveness the dog always brought to moments when Ethan's body language said something important was happening internally. 11 years, Ethan said to no one in particular. Rex put his chin on Ethan's arm. "I know," Ethan said.
Me too. The federal team arrived from Billings at 2 in the afternoon, and they brought with them the organized, efficient energy of an agency that had been waiting for something like this to break open for 14 months and was not going to waste a minute of the opportunity. ATF took the warehouse. FBI took the network documentation that Hale had been providing in a recorded interview since 10 that morning. State handled the prosecution pipeline for Kowalski and the 2 men from Linda's property.
Hale's cooperation was extensive and specific, and went considerably higher than Silver Ridge. The names he provided reached into 3 states and 2 federal contracting organizations, and produced warrants that were still being processed 4 days after his arrest. He gave everything. Not because he was offered leniency, though leniency was eventually part of the negotiation. Because a man who stops in the middle of a county road and puts his hands up has already made a decision about what he is willing to carry and what he is not. And Victor Hale had decided he was not willing to carry 6,000 civilian casualties for people who had never once, in the entire course of their arrangement, treated him as anything other than a tool with an expiration date. The festival ran on Saturday as scheduled. Ethan stood at the perimeter of the festival grounds at 7 in the evening, while 6,000 people moved through the lights and the music and the particular happiness of a Montana winter celebration. And he watched it with a specific awareness of someone who knows exactly how close the distance was between this and something else entirely. Rex was at his heel, working, because that was what Rex always did in public spaces now, and would do until the day he retired. But he moved with the easy efficiency of a dog who was not finding anything and knew it, and was content to be present in a crowd of people who had no idea how many hands and noses and decisions had stood between them and the worst night of their lives. Maya appeared beside him with 2 cups of coffee. She handed him one without asking if he wanted it. "Hargrove sent his final report," she said. 3 devices, all military-grade C4, all fully functional at the time of discovery. His assessment is that the festival casualties would have been in the hundreds minimum if all 3 had detonated on the planned sequence. She held her cup with both hands. He included a note at the end of the report that was not standard. He said, quote, "The outcome of this incident is attributable to the explosive detection work of K9 Unit Rex, the investigative work of Detective Collins, and the direct intervention of a civilian witness whose early warning prevented the elimination of the K9 asset before the investigation began." Ethan looked at the crowd. "He called Noah a civilian witness," Ethan said. "It is the most accurate technical description," Maya said. "Noah is 10 years old, and he was sleeping barefoot in an alley in December when he decided to run at a cop he had no reason to trust," Ethan said. "Civilian witness does not cover it." Maya was quiet for a moment. "What does cover it?" Ethan watched a family near the hot chocolate stand, 2 parents and 3 children, the youngest one being lifted to reach the counter, everyone laughing at something the child said. He thought about what that family's Saturday evening would have looked like if a boy with a grocery receipt and a pencil had not been watching a parking lot on Thursday night. "I do not think there is a word for it yet," Ethan said. Noah was not at the festival. He was at Ethan's house. This was a development that had occurred with the particular organic inevitability of things that nobody plans and everybody later agrees was obvious. After the property incident, after Linda's storm cellar, after the tree line and the fence gap, and the moment in the snow when Noah had said, "Okay," with all the weight of someone extending the last careful increment of trust they had, Ethan had driven him back to the station, and Noah had sat in the passenger seat with Biscuit on his lap and said nothing for most of the drive, which was how Noah processed things, and Ethan had respected that, because it was also how Ethan processed things. At the station, Diane had looked at Ethan and at Noah and at Biscuit
and at the overnight bag that Linda had packed for the boy, and she had said, "Where is he going?" Ethan had looked at Noah. Noah had looked at Ethan with those careful eyes. Not hopeful, not asking, just present. Just waiting to find out what the world was going to do next. The way a person waits when they have learned that the world is unpredictable, but that unpredictable sometimes goes in a direction you did not expect.
"He is going to my place for now," Ethan said, "until we sort out the right next step." Diane had looked at Noah. "Is that all right with you?" Noah had considered it with the full weight he brought to all consequential questions. "Rex will be there," he said. "Rex will be there," Ethan confirmed. "Okay," Noah said. That had been Thursday. It was now Saturday. In the 36 hours between those two events, something had happened in Ethan's house that he did not have a precise word for, but that Rex apparently understood completely. Because the German Shepherd had stationed himself on Noah's bedroom doorway on the first night, and had not varied from that position except for working hours and feeding time. And Biscuit had taken up a complementary position on the inside of the door, and the two dogs had established a perimeter around the sleeping boy, with the instinctive coordination of animals who agreed on what mattered without needing to discuss it. Ethan had stood in the hallway outside that room at midnight on Thursday and looked at the two dogs and thought about a boy who had been alone since June, who had lost the last person in his family in April, who had chosen a storm cellar exit and a tree line over a storm cellar because he could not make himself be somewhere without information when the people he had started to trust might be in danger. He had gone back to bed and stared at the ceiling for a while. Then he had called the County Family Services office at 8 the next morning and asked about emergency foster certification and what the timeline looked like for someone in law enforcement. The caseworker's name was Patricia, and she had been doing this job for 22 years, and she said, "Officer Walker, in 22 years I have never had a law enforcement officer call me the morning after taking in an emergency placement asking about certification timelines." "Is that a problem?" Ethan said. "It is the opposite of a problem," Patricia said. "I will come to you. Tell me when." She came at 4 on Friday afternoon. Noah was at the kitchen table drawing. Rex was under the table. Biscuit was beside Rex. The drawing Noah was working on was not a face, and not a suspect sketch. It was the festival grounds from memory, rendered with the precise spatial accuracy of someone who had studied it from the outside for weeks. Every booth and walkway and stage position mapped from observation. Patricia had sat down across from Noah and looked at the drawing for a long moment, and then looked at Noah and said, "How long have you been drawing?" "Always," Noah said. "That is very good," she said. Noah looked at her with the assessment, running his evaluation, measuring her against his calibrated scale of adults who said things they meant versus adults who said things they thought were expected. "Thank you," he said. He said it like he believed her. Ethan had watched that from the doorway and felt something shift in his chest that he had not felt shift in that particular direction in a long time. The certification process was initiated. Patricia made no promises about timeline or outcome, which Ethan respected. She did say, at the end of her visit, standing at the door with her coat on and her bag over her shoulder, that in her professional assessment, the placement was appropriate and the environment was stable, and she would be prioritizing the paperwork. She looked at Rex, who had followed Noah to the door, and was sitting beside the boy with the authority of a dog who had decided his off-duty hours had a new assignment. "That dog approves," she said. "Rex is a good judge," Ethan said. "I have noticed," Patricia said, and she left. The twist that came on Saturday morning came quietly and completely changed the shape of everything that followed. Noah was at breakfast. Ethan was pouring coffee. Biscuit was doing something investigative under the table that Rex was pretending not to notice. The television in the living room was on, and the local news was running coverage of the bombing investigation and the festival security operation and the arrests. The way local news covered things of this size, with the particular thoroughness of outlets that did not normally have this caliber of story to work with. The anchor was reading from a statement issued by federal prosecutors. She read the names of the arrested individuals and the charges, and then she said, "Federal investigators have noted that the investigation was materially assisted by a juvenile witness whose early warning on Thursday evening prevented the assassination of the K-9 officer central to the explosive detection operation. The witness has not been identified due to age." Noah looked at the television. Then he looked at Ethan. "They called me a juvenile witness," he said. "You are a juvenile witness," Ethan said, "among other things." "What other things?" Noah said. Ethan sat down across from him. Rex moved under the table and put his chin on Noah's knee, the way he had been doing since Thursday night, and Noah put his hand on the dog's head without looking down. Automatic now. The gesture of someone for whom a dog's presence had become a given rather than a surprise. Ethan said, "You ran at a police officer you did not know because you saw something wrong and you could not make yourself ignore it. You gave us an eyewitness account that identified our primary suspect before we had any other lead. You produced a drawing that was more accurate than anything a trained sketch artist would have given us. You held your position in a tree line under pressure and gave us a tactical assessment of two armed men on a property when you were 10 years old with no training and no obligation to do anything except save yourself." He looked at Noah directly. "You are a juvenile witness. You are also the reason 6,000 people are at a winter festival tonight instead of something else." Noah looked at the table. He was quiet for a moment. The processing quiet. Then he said, "My grandmother used to say that watching out for people was the only thing that mattered. She said everything else was just what you did with your hands while you were watching out for people." He paused. "I think about her when I draw. She is the one who showed me how." Ethan held that for a moment. "She sounds like she was remarkable," Ethan said. "She was the best person I knew," Noah said. He said it simply, without performance, the way you speak about something true when you have made peace with the fact that truth and pain sometimes live in the same sentence. "I have been trying to be what she taught me since she went. It is harder without her here." "It would be," Ethan said. "But you are doing it." Noah looked up. "Am I?" "A boy who runs at a stranger in a snowstorm to stop him from getting blown up, because it is the right thing to do," Ethan said, "is doing exactly what his grandmother taught him. Yes." Something moved in Noah's face. Not the crack that comes before crying. Something quieter than that. Something that settled. Like a question that had been running in the background for 7 months, finally received an answer it could work with. Rex's tail moved under the table. Biscuit emerged from whatever investigation he had been conducting and sat between their chairs and looked at both of them with the cheerful, uncomplicated attention of a dog who had no investment in the complexity of human emotion and simply wanted everyone to be in the same room. The winter festival ended at 10 that night, with fireworks over the lake. Ethan drove back from the perimeter detail and pulled into his driveway and sat in the vehicle for a moment before going in. Rex was in the passenger seat, end of shift, carrying that particular post-work quality of a dog who had done his job and done it well, and knew it. The kitchen light was on inside. Through the window, Ethan could see Noah at the table, still drawing. Biscuit beside him. The particular late-night focus of a child who had found something that absorbed him completely and did not require anything from the world except the space to do it. Ethan sat there for a moment and watched the light in the window. He thought about a parking lot on Thursday evening and a boy who came out of an alley barefoot in December,
because his grandmother had taught him that watching out for people was the only thing that mattered. He thought about Rex going rigid at the bow of a routine exit and refusing to read it as anything except what it was. He thought about the particular courage of things that are small and vulnerable and act anyway. Of a stray dog pressing against a frightened child in an alley. Of a 10-year-old who watched parking lots because it was the only protection he had, and who turned that watching into something that saved hundreds of lives. He thought about a grandmother who grew a boy into someone who could not look away from wrong things. He thought about what it meant to repay that. He got out of the vehicle. Rex jumped out behind him and walked to the door and waited with the patience of a dog who had somewhere warm to be and a family to go back to, and understood that both of those things were worth waiting for. Ethan opened the door. Noah looked up from his drawing. "Did the fireworks go okay?" "The fireworks went okay," Ethan said. "Good," Noah said. He looked at Rex. "I saved you the last piece of cornbread. It is on the counter." Rex's tail moved in the specific register that meant this was an acceptable development. Ethan looked at the cornbread on the counter. He looked at a 10-year-old boy who had been alone since June, sitting at his kitchen table at 10 at night, drawing by lamplight, with a stray dog beside him and a German shepherd coming through the door to find his saved cornbread. He thought about Patricia and the paperwork she had promised to prioritize. He thought about a drawing of festival grounds on a kitchen table, rendered from memory by a boy who paid attention to everything, because that was what his grandmother taught him, and that was what had kept him alive. He sat down across from Noah. "Can I see what you are drawing?" he said. Noah turned the paper around. It was Rex and Biscuit, sitting side by side, rendered with the same precision and care Noah brought to everything he drew. Every line placed with intention, every proportion considered. Rex with his alert ears and amber eyes, and the specific way he carried himself, that Ethan had been looking at for 4 years, and could not have described in words, but Noah had described in pencil, with complete accuracy. Biscuit with his mixed-breed cheerfulness, and the particular angle of his head when he was paying attention to something he found interesting. And between the two dogs, in the drawing, a space. Not empty, not unintentional. A space that was the size of a person and shaped like one, and left open. Ethan looked at the space. He looked at Noah. Noah looked at the drawing with a careful assessment of an artist evaluating his own work. Then he said quietly, "I did not know who to put there yet." Ethan looked at the space between the two dogs for a long moment. Then he said, "I think you might know soon." Noah looked at him. The full assessment. Every instrument running. Then he picked up his pencil. And a boy who had been alone since June, who had watched parking lots from alleys in December, who had run at strangers in snowstorms because his grandmother taught him that watching out for people was the only thing that mattered, began to draw the person in the space between the dogs. And Rex lay down beside the table and put his chin on Noah's foot. And Biscuit lay down on the other side and put his chin on Rex. And in a small house in Silver Ridge, Montana, the family that nobody had planned and everybody needed settled into the particular quiet of people who have been through something enormous together and have come out the other side and have found, in the wreckage of everything it cost, something they did not know they were building all along. Heroes do not always arrive with badges and sirens and everything figured out. Sometimes they arrive barefoot in the snow, with a stray dog at their heels and a drawing in their pocket, running towards something they have no reason to trust except that their grandmother taught them that looking away was never an option. And sometimes that is exactly enough to save everything.